Thanks for tuning in to Unclogged, a Zoom Drain podcast, where we take an in-depth look at the wins and losses of our niche home service. We're also going to look at best practices on unclogging your business and the pipe dreams that motivate our every move. Are you ready? Let's run it.
Welcome back to another episode of Unclogged, a Zoom Drain podcast. I am Ed Miller, the content manager here at Zoom Drain, and I am with Teresa Mangano. And today we're going to talk a little bit about leadership. So, what has your experience been as a leader?
My experience as a leader has been mostly in the construction industry and a lot of training and just really helping people to grow and become better versions of themselves, whether that is at work, at home. I do think there's a crossover. The better you are at work, you can really take those skills home with you and just be a more amazing person than you were before.
What's one of the biggest characteristics towards being a good leader?
Empathy.
Okay.
You definitely have to be really empathetic. You have to have a genuine interest in knowing who your people are. And they may not be your team members. They may be just people who work in the office with you, whether that's field, office, it doesn't matter. But just getting to know them.
The word manager gets thrown around a lot. Mm-hmm. And there's a difference between being a manager and being a leader. And what is that difference?
It's a huge difference. So when you take it down to its kind of technical terms, a leader is someone who motivates and gets people excited and just keeps the morale high no matter what's going on. A manager is someone that is a little bit more concerned with those everyday tasks. And they can be the same person, absolutely, but they don't have to be the same person. And just because someone has a title where they're a supervisor, a manager, a director, does not necessarily make them a leader.
But is there a negative connotation that comes with being just a manager as opposed to being a leader?
There can be, and I think that is false. You know, not everybody is going to be a leader, and that's okay. You really need those managers to be able to, make sure that the business is getting run, and things are getting accomplished and everything is moving in the right path or on the right path. So having managers are exceedingly important, and you can't have 20 leaders necessarily in a smaller or mid-sized company.
Okay.
Because then you have just a lot of people who don't always work kind of for the same goal. So you have to have your managers that are out there getting things done, and they could be absolutely positive, amazing people, but not always going to be that leader.
How important is being a leader when it comes to listening? You want to be a good listener, right? To make sure you understand your employees and understand what they need to succeed?
Yes, you have to be a good listener. A lot of people tend to listen to respond and not listen to actually hear what the person is saying. And sometimes decisions can be made in a vacuum where people who are involved in the absolute day-to-day have absolutely no involvement whatsoever. So everything is kind of created in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. So I think a really good leader or a really good manager is going to be listening to their people, hearing what's going on, and just having a feel for the culture and have a feel for, is there a lot of tension in the office? Is it everybody's really happy, and kind of clue into some of those signals that are being given off, both verbally and non-verbally, and be able to make the best decisions with that information.
You mentioned culture. How important is that from a leadership standpoint to make sure that you have the right culture to make sure everybody's moving forward in the same direction?
Again, incredibly important. A leader is really the true driver of the culture. Absolutely. You kind of have your visionaries, and they have an overall ideal of what the company is going to be and how, you're going to make that, where you're going to be on that next level, but not necessarily how you're going to get to the next level. They just have that overall vision of, we're going to make this much in sales in this many years. And then you have those leaders, those managers who are actually putting all of that effort into effect and making sure that everything is getting done.
As a leader, you face obstacles every day, just like any other employee, but you face more because you have a team working under you. If you're dealing with somebody that's kind of swimming against the current, whether it be struggling or just trying to do something a little differently, how do you manage that? How do you make sure you're getting the most out of that employee?
You talk to them. You talk to them and
That
you listen.
simple?
It's not simple, and I don't want to make it sound like it's just a snap of the fingers and everything's happy and everyone's just these happy employees or happy people. But you do have to really take the time to sit down and listen. You may have someone who is an absolutely amazing performer and they're just going through something right now. And unless you know that and have taken the time to understand that, it's a disservice to not only your teammate, but also to the entire company. Because I keep going back, everything goes back to that human aspect of, yes, we're employees, but we're people. We have emotions, we have feelings, we have our own motivations and our own struggles. So any leader and every leader should be really attuned to if someone's just a little bit off and just sit down and say, hey, what can I do? And sometimes it's not even asking them what's going on. It's just going out and grabbing them a coffee. Just doing something nice to help brighten their day. And that can have an immediate impact on that person's life, which can then obviously have an impact on their performance and how they just, go about their day.
Don't be a robot. Be a human. Show compassion. Show that you care about them. They spend almost as much time in work as they do at home during the waking hours. So
exactly.
It's important to make sure you connect with them on that level.
Yeah. I feel like I know some of the people that I work with more than I know some of my family members, and I joke about that, but, we do spend an extraordinary amount of time at work and we invest so much in what we're doing every day. So any human being wants their leader, their boss to invest that much effort into them as a person.
Yeah. When it comes to change, so change is something a lot of leaders have to focus on, and it's something that's continuously changing. Change is changing.
Yeah,
and,
always.
And it's something you have to keep up with, whether it's manuals, whether it's just the overall. I mean, we just made a big change. We just moved into this entirely new building.
Yeah.
And how do you manage change? How do you become a leader during times when changes? Because that can be the time when people are struggling the most.
And I do find that is when you see leaders emerge the most, is when you're going through some change. It may be a good change, it may be a negative change, but if the company is going through any kind of a change, change is hard. Most people don't really enjoy, this policy is completely changed now. Even if it may be to their benefit, it still is kind of that, I don't understand. I don't know. There's some unknown factors. And how is it going to affect me? So those leaders that emerge are the people who are rallying everybody and getting everybody excited and saying, you know what, I know this may seem like a bad thing. It's going to turn around. It's going to be okay. Here's our game plan. What can I do to help? And you see people step forward and you see people really rallying everybody and motivating everyone. And that is one of my favorite things. It really, really is, because in most companies that I've worked for, I walked into a company where there was no applicant tracking system or there weren't necessarily policies in regards to recruiting. And that's hard. You have this new person coming into a company, and this is for any role. If there's not really policies and procedures written down, or, they just kind of did things loosey-goosey before, you walk in and you're this new kid coming in and they've been there for 15 years and you're like, well, I think we should change this. It's how you approach it.
Yes.
It's the benefits. How is this going to benefit the company? How is this going to make your life easier? And if you really communicate that well and the strategy well of how you're going to accomplish it together, not me forcing it on you, but how do we get this done together?
Because people can really headbutt change.
Yes,
that can be one of the biggest problems and one of the biggest reasons people don't stay at a company. If things are constantly changing and evolving, people like to be in that routine. They like to be in that set planned out. I mean, they like a little bit of change here and there, but if it's just constantly changing,
it's hard.
It's hard.
A lot of people like structure, whether it's a little bit of structure, a lot of structure. They like to know that they're going to get up at 6 o'clock every morning. They're going to have a cup of coffee. They're going to hit the road by 6:30, get into work. They're going to do X, Y, Z. And when you shake that up, it can be very difficult. So if you communicate that really clearly and also communicate that, things are going to go wrong. We have a plan, but something is going to go not according to the plan, but we're going to address it immediately. We're going to figure out a solution and we're going to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
But again, that's not in a vacuum, right? That's including everybody and engaging everyone. And if you're doing that, you're going to have people who want to step up and want to do more and be more involved, and they're going to be more excited about it, and they'll be your champions.
Employees face issues, they face problems, but as a manager, you face just as many. So when an employee has a problem, they come to their manager, they come to their leader, they ask for advice, they go from there. What does the leader do as the higher up when they're battling something, when they're facing something?
I think this is where you have a support system, and that might be internally within the company, that might be externally, but sometimes you just need to vent, and say, what, today was really rough and didn't have the best day. This didn't go my way. I made this mistake. So if you have a support system, that's key, whether, again, it's within the company, outside of the company, your family, your friends, but also recognizing and being self-aware and knowing, I'm starting to get a little snappy because I made this mistake. I screwed this up, and ownership of that is important. I screwed it up. Let me fix it. And, then we can move on. Admit it and fix it and move on. But sometimes you just need to take an hour. Go have lunch. It shouldn't be frowned upon, to step away because you just need that breather.
Got to recharge the batteries.
You got to recharge the batteries, self-care. It really comes back to self-care and just recognizing that that's important for you.
One thing that I love here at Zoom Drain is the fact that we share a vision. I mean, everybody from the lowest person on the totem pole to the highest person on the totem pole understands why we're here, understands what we're doing. As a leader, how does having a vision affect your employees? How does making sure everybody's on the same page add value to your leadership?
It's like a train, right? You got to have a conductor. You have to have somebody who is, keeping it moving in the right direction, and you have to have everybody helping to keep it moving in the right direction. So again, communicating, talking to them, being, having them involved in that shared vision, because it should be a shared vision. Shouldn't be just someone dictating, we're going to do X, Y, Z. Some decisions do need to be made in a silo, right? Don't get me wrong, for the good of the company, but when it has a really significant impact, I do feel that's when you should get your people involved and get their input, get their opinions, their advice, especially when they're the people doing the job. And if you're doing that, and if you're actively listening and you're actively, trying to make those changes where you can. You're not always going to be able to do that. But if you can make some small changes based on their thoughts, their opinions, again, they're the people doing the jobs, then that keeps everybody moving forward. It keeps everybody engaged and doesn't feel like, they're just kind of being thrown. We'll change from train and go to a boat, right? You're not getting thrown overboard left and right because you don't know what's going on. You're not necessarily really on board with that. Yeah. So communication.
One of the best examples that immediately comes to mind is our careers website.
Yes.
ZoomDrainCareers.com, shameless
Love
plug.
It.
So we work together on that with a few other people throughout the marketing department. And it just shows the quality of what we want to convey, of the vision that we share. And everyone's on board. You watch the video and everybody shares that same passion, that same love, and that same drive. And it's something that I think every business needs to have a little bit of. They need to have everybody just on board, driving the train, like you said, the conductors, and just pushing forward. And I think it's a great tool, and it's something that's very useful.
So with the website, I use that example literally all the time because You, Andrew, myself sat in a room. Aaron was involved as well, throwing ideas in there. And it was really collaborative. And I was walking in there with all of these ideas, of kind of my vision, what I really, really wanted to see. But I'm not the marketing expert. I'm not a website expert, not my area of expertise at all.
Yeah.
So, but you listened. You and Andrew and Aaron absolutely listened to all of my ideas, some of which were a little bit wacky, but you didn't just say, we can't do that. You said, okay, well, let's make it work. Let's do this. So it was a very, very exciting thing to work on, to have that collaboration and to feel like we were part of this really cool shared vision.
On top of that, to kind of stay in that same vein, development, developing your employees. So what is the best way to develop your employees so that they're happy, so that they continue to grow in the company?
Finding out what their goals are. And those goals are going to change, but having those conversations, having one-on-ones, introducing them to new projects, and just not putting them in a little box and saying you're only going to do accounts payable. It's all you're going to touch. Don't do anything else. But showing them new tasks, asking them, do you like this? Do you not like this? What are your interests? What are your goals? And
when you mention goals, do you mean as far as 6 months from now, a year from now, a 5-year plan?
All of it.
All of it?
All of it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. What do you plan on accomplishing? What's your goal? What would you like to accomplish in the next 6 months, right? What would you like to learn that we can help you with? What about a year from now? What about 5 years from now? What about 10 years from now? And again, that's going to continuously change as they maybe take on a new task or project that they've never done. And they think, I don't know, I love that one. That's not my area. And you just kind of, you pivot and introduce something else and ask them more questions.
But it just kind of gives them the tools to be successful and to help further their growth.
Yes. Are there webinars that we can help you with, that might further your skill set? Are there certifications that might be a really good fit for your particular role and your growth? So it's not just about the projects and the tasks that you give them. It's about trying to find out, what specialized training that we're able to provide to them that's going to help them, further their goals and their ambitions.
Goals are great, but you also want to have realistic expectations too. Everybody wants to own a Ferrari. Everybody wants to have a mansion in the Hamptons. But
I want a horse.
She wants a horse.
I want a horse.
How do you maintain realistic expectations, not just for yourself as a leader, but for those working under you?
You have regular check-ins, and you're honest. People tend to be a little bit afraid of feedback. If your boss says, hey, can I talk to you for 10 minutes? I think most people immediately just go, oh, what did I do? But I think feedback, positive and negative, is really imperative for everyone's growth, for the leader's growth, for the manager's growth, for the employee's growth. So having very honest conversations where if someone didn't maybe excel at a project, saying, you seem to struggle a little bit on this. How could we have helped you? How can we help you moving forward? And just being honest but respectful and professional, and figuring out where that miss may have been if it's not a realistic goal. If it's a master's degree and that's just not in the cards, they want that, and you realistically tell them, unfortunately, that's really not something that we can help you with, but maybe we can help you with this instead. Maybe we can get you this certification, or, have you do this set of classes, and that will still help you.
Yeah, give them other tools that are still going to benefit them.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a yes or no. It could. There's options, right?
So you mentioned carving out 10 minutes for an employee. Meetings like that are important, and if you're a manager that's not valuing face-to-face time, what does that kind of do to diminish that relationship?
It can do a lot to diminish it. And I can be guilty of this because we're all running around. There's a lot going on. Everybody is busy. So acknowledging that, for me, acknowledging that, I didn't get that one-on-one in, and how am I going to do better? And just really carving out that time and sticking to it. Because if you don't, there can be a huge communication breakdown, and it can really feel like, well, maybe I'm not that important.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not, valued, or you don't know where you stand. Are you on the same page with projects? And a lot of people, and again, I'm guilty of this too. You think, well, it's on the fly. I'm just saying, hey, can you do this, or can you change this? But that is much, much less valuable than you sitting down with a person face to face or over video, so you can at least see each other and going over the projects that are working on. What are their priorities? What are not priorities? Checking in. How are they doing? How do they feel about the projects they're working on and the day-to-day?
Yes, and a little positive momentum as well of just, hey, you're doing this right. You're doing a good job, as opposed to finishing the entire project and then now you're including input and it's not exactly how it went. That can be frustrating for the employee of, I did all this work. Now I have to start back at stage 2 when I could be working on the next project. How can you manage that? How can you handle that? How can you help with your failure as a manager and your employees' quote-unquote failure? I mean, everybody learns from failure, right? So no failure is not the best word. It makes it sound so negative, You get one wrong on a test and it's the end of the world, but you learn from that mistake, you move forward. So how important is it to manage failure, both for you and for the employee?
So when you're having the conversation with your team about how the project may have gone wrong or how it was quote unquote a failure, it's important to own it. It shouldn't be a blame situation.
Don't start pointing fingers.
Do not point fingers. Do not throw people under the bus. That is the absolute biggest way you're going to kill culture, is by pointing fingers, blaming other people. Let's take ownership, and that will get you so much more in terms of your team and the people that you work with. So own it, figure out maybe where it went wrong, how you want to change it, and then go out and do it.
Do any of the fingers have to be pointed to yourself to just make sure, hey, am I doing this right?
Absolutely. Again, it's self-awareness. Every person who leads other people should always take a look at their own behaviors, their own actions, reactions, and think, is this how I would want to be talked to? Do I want someone to approach me this way? We're all different, but at the core of it, again, we are all human beings.
Yes.
We all want people to talk to us with a degree of respect.
Yeah, we don't want to be a number, and we don't want to feel like the next person can come in and do it or do it better. You just got to work with us. That's it.
Yeah, just talk to us, work with us. Sometimes it's not going to always be, great job, you're amazing. Sometimes it's going to be, I really would have liked if you had done this differently, or I would like to see this from you moving forward. That's totally okay. I do that with myself. We should all be doing that with ourselves constantly, especially if we are in a position where we are leading other people. It should be very, very self-aware, and it should always be with the idea that we can do better. And if we do better, they'll do better.
I love what you just said about feedback, and I want to delve into that just a little bit of as somebody that works with a team, it can be challenging on my end sometimes to find that when something's not done to my specifications or the way I'd like to see it, just that I had it envisioned in my mind, that I go back and ask for a change, and then maybe I go back and ask for another change, and then I go back and ask for another change. But that can be timid for some people to okay, I need this fixed again for the 13th time. How do you work through that?
I think that's a learning experience. I think that just comes with time. I would say when I first started out, it was very hard for me to give feedback. And over time, I've learned that people do appreciate feedback. And while they may be frustrated if you're going back for the 13th time, it's okay, because it's that shared goal of, hey, I just noticed this and I want to make this the best that we can make it. Can we work on this? And can we adjust this? So it's really approach. I think everything comes back down to approach. No matter what you're talking about leadership-wise, how do you approach it? From a well-intentioned, positive place, or from a place of negativity where you're just, you screwed it up again. How dare you?
Yeah, it's all in the approach and how you execute.
Yeah.
You mentioned education a little bit earlier as far as webinars go and getting your master's degree and going back to school, that sort of thing. But what other ways that are more under the radar can managers better educate themselves and help their employees grow through education?
There's a lot of ways. So, and we don't always think of them, but there's a million books out there on a million different subjects. So if you are wanting to learn more about calculus or about recruiting or about leadership or really about any subject you can think of, how to properly clean a drain snake, you can find it out there. So read up. There's white papers that you can find that deal with a variety of subjects. So you can do that on LinkedIn. You can seek out industry experts on LinkedIn, connect with them.
It's a great idea.
Start a conversation, kind of pick their brain. Who doesn't want to be approached by someone saying, hey, can I pick your brain? I'm really interested in what you have to say.
We all love being mentors and watching other people grow.
We do. Searching for hashtags. I talk about on LinkedIn, I do hashtags probably a little bit too much on LinkedIn, but there's all these hashtags out there. So search a subject that you're interested in through that hashtag, and you're going to find all these people who are talking about all of these different subjects, and just start the conversation, put a post out there. You can do all those kinds of things.
What about something as simple as a Google search? I made the geo landing pages for a lot of the websites, built some of the SEO out. No idea, no experience when I came into it to do that. So a lot of it was trial and error. It was learning from other people around me, and it was also just Google searches. How's the best way to execute this? What can I do to build a geo landing page? How can I get the most out of it? Is that something that you would definitely recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I think I could build a house from YouTube at this point. Are you kidding?
Who can't?
Yeah, exactly. There's so many resources available now on the internet. Google searches, YouTube, different forums. They're all readily available. They're easy to find, and they can give you a ton of new information and just further your own education.
Yeah, and you also want to make sure that you're using multiple searches, that you don't get all your advice from one specific website, because we all know how the internet can play tricks on us sometimes. So making sure that we vet what the information is that we're getting and make sure we get it from multiple sources, that can definitely be important as well.
I remember that from college. Verifiable sources. Don't necessarily trust certain websites. We won't name names. But just looking at a number of sites, verifying and getting the most out of it.
Well, Teresa, I think we learned a ton about leadership today and the skills to being a great leader. So thank you, and until next time.
Thank you.